Hello everybody, my name is Kate. Welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. This is take 3. The first time I couldn't remember my name or the name of my channel. The second time I was horking up a hairball. And third time's a charm. I've made it already 15 seconds, so I think I'm good without having to cut and start over. This is the companion follow-up video for Back to the Future when I had Metaphysical Movie Night the other night with Back to the Future. It took me a couple of days to finish it. I got sidetracked with some new moon in Aries business, which became the priority. However, let's fast forward right into Back to the Future. That was so hilarious. I had to go back and start it over a couple of different times because I just couldn't get over the laughter of, oh my God, that if this isn't just, dorkfish funny, I don't know what is. Couple of things. First of all, poor old Marty McFly. Marty is teenage guy with a dorkfish dad who gets his ass kicked constantly by Biff, who's a big jock and is just he's a giant bully. And the story moves on that dad was bullied in high school by this guy, and he's a grown man by the time Marty is in high school, and looking up to his dad for a role model and seeing dorkfish that just gets his butt handed to him all the time by bullies. So anyhow, some of the things that I found quite hilarious about the movie, aside from just all the metaphysical meaning, symbology, it's a great movie. Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly, and Christopher Lloyd is the scientist, the crazy scientist, and they do a great job. 1985. I think I said it was 1988 before, and it was actually made in 1985, and I was a junior in high school, so I could really relate to the, you are my density, being a dork. I've always been kind of a dork myself, and fitting in and stuff has been a little bit of a problem because most of the time I don't even try because I already know, I'm not going to fit in. I'm kind of weird. I have autism, and I think, we can blame it on that. It kind of explains some things, but I don't really fit in very well socially a lot, and I don't pick up social cues until I'm like, going, I think I have my feelings hurt. But anyway, out of my sag bag story and get to some of the best stuff was the fact that poor Marty, he's trying to go Van Halen in a talent show after school, and Mr. Strickland, is that his name? Mr. Strickland, he's the principal. The dude is just like, he's a total, and can't let up on Marty or Marty's dad. You're a loser just like your dad. And so Marty tries out for the talent show, and he's going Van Halen with some stuff and, monstering up on his electric guitar. And they say, that's too loud. And so that made me laugh really hard because I can't tell you how many times I've heard, you're so loud. Like, okay, so anyhow, the other thing was gas was $1.09 a gallon. That's freaking hilarious because I don't know how much gas is where you are, but it's nowhere near $1.09. And let's see, what else is there? Oh yeah, hello, McFly, anyone home? And then he turns around, that's Biff, and he turns around to Marty and goes, what are you looking at, butthead? And I had forgotten about all those taglines for sure. Well, let's fast forward to Marty ends up needing to go back in time to he's going to save the scientist because the scientist is perceived to be killed. And so Marty, in an effort to get away from the Libyan terrorists the scientist is traded in pinball parts for plutonium to get his time machine out the door at 88 miles an hour is when that magic happens. Look that up. The numerology make you laugh for a day and a half on that metaphysical and symbolic meaning alone. I won't bother you with the detail on that. Go look it up. Hilarious. So anyway, when they're there testing this, they've sent Einstein the dog, back or forward in time 10 minutes or 2 minutes or something like that, and then he comes flying back in, and the terrorists figure out where the scientist is, and they come in a Volkswagen van, like that 70s show rolled up in 1985. And they're terrorists, and they're shooting at the doctor who's got this little pistol, and they shoot him. And so Marty jumps in the time machine to get away, right? And he ends up going back in time, and he figures, all right, I got to find the scientist, and I'm going to save him anyway because I want to be able to keep him from getting killed, later in time. And in order to keep his picture, he's got a picture of his brother and his sister, And in order to keep the picture from fading out and taking away his brother, his sister, and himself, because he's interfered with the space-time continuum by speaking to anybody he didn't know. He had already met his dad and had already interfered by saving his dad. His dad was a peeping Tom. That was totally lost on me. I don't remember that at all. And Marty was a bit shocked too. Of my dad's he's a peeping Tom, but he falls down in the street, and Marty goes and pushes him out of the way, and then he assumes the role with his mom, who, you know, she doesn't know. She's just falling in love at the Florence Nightingale effect with the boy that, you know, she's nursing back to health, and should have been Marty's dad. And in the past, where they are in 1955, I think, they're both the same age, and so, you know, whatever. So she doesn't know. That I didn't realize until I watched the movie. She has no idea, and neither does the dad. I don't remember what his name is. It's not Marty, but Marty is the teenager. So anyhow, he kind of screws up that time-space continuum thing, and because of it, Lorraine is falling in love with her son as a teenager instead of her future husband, and it starts to erase Marty, his brother, and his sister from the picture. And so he finds a scientist, and they work out, you know, okay, we have to get this shit straightened out and get them to that enchantment under the sea dance where they're gonna, you know, meet and kiss for the first time and all this other garbage. And so they're working out their plan, right? Well, before we get there, let me just tell you a couple of the quotations that I found were quite hilarious. Is Marty asks him, where the hell is Einstein? You know, what happened? And the professor says, no, when the hell are they? When the hell are they? Great, right? And then when Marty is flying and doing his thing, and he's blowing into I believe a barn or something, he doesn't realize he's in 1955. However, when he starts driving around and seeing, he's like, this is weird. He goes, it's all just a dream, a really intense dream. And that's hilarious, because I say that to myself at all and go, yeah, okay, it's just a really intense nightmare, let's be honest, you know. So fast forward anyway, that when the scientist is telling Marty that you've screwed things up by intervening, and you're going to have to figure it out because, you know, your mom, and he's like, what? My mom has the hots for me? And he says, well, yeah. And he goes, that's heavy. And the scientist says, what's this heavy? That's what you said that again. And why do you say that? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull in the future? And that rocked me solid for a minute, made me laugh, because we're going to change the properties of Earth. I'm all about quantum science. I don't do the actual computations themselves. I understand very well the principle, and I read energy, a very intuitive, and an energy channeler, an energy healer, and an intuitive. And so it just rocked me solid with, no, there aren't going to be changes in the properties of gravity in the future, at least not for the predictable future that any human being can really conceive of right now. Not that's on my radar. Not the trajectory that we're on right now. We're not quite ready to, you know, make that kind of an ascension. So anyhow, he gives dad, when his dad, when they go to talk to the dad and convince him he needs to ask Lorraine to the dance and get it all straightened out, Marty can't say, you know, look, you're my dad in the future and all this other stuff, but he finds out some really interesting things about his dad. His dad was a science fiction writer, and he tells him, you know, oh, cool, let me read that. And the dad said, oh, no, you know, I don't ever let anyone read that. And he said, why? And he says, well, because they might, you know, not like it. What would happen if they didn't like it? What would happen if? And, you know, I don't know if I could handle that rejection, but nobody else would understand that. And of course, Marty, he totally gets, and he's like, yeah, I know, I do get it, because he says the same thing about his band, and he's been rejected at the talent show, and his girl, in present day 1985, that girl says, well, why don't you send the cassette tape, why don't you send the mixtape in to production company or producer, whoever, and he says, well, what if they don't like it? You know, I just don't think I can handle the rejection. And so you get that tie-in of kind of those generational hexes, curses, etc. You get the baggage of lifetimes, if that's what you believe in. I personally don't subscribe to that theory for a lot of reasons. However, in those dimensions where we're going to hang out in lifetime understanding, that's how that stuff builds up in the quantum field and travels up forward in momentum, is that it just carries on, because energy is energy. Energy is energy, and it will keep on traveling. And so when that, you know, I don't know if I could do that, blah, 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 it passed down from Marty's dad down to Marty. And by changing the past, it altered the future significantly. So much so that Lorraine and the dad, whatever his name is, they end up, of course, together through all these heroic acts and everything. It's a great movie. When Marty drops back into present day, his dad has had the courage to fight off Biff and protect his woman, because Biff was getting real handsy. I mean, I don't remember that either, but Biff was getting all, you know, that was some date rape shit that was happening right there. And when the dad saw that, he's like, I can't dig it. You know, he was expecting to find Marty in the car, and he didn't. He found Biff, and it didn't matter. Biff was pushing him off and going, you don't see anything? You need to just close the door like you don't see a thing. And it was in that 11:11. It was in that moment that the dad was like, nah. And you see him, and he just balls up his fist, and he lets him have it and says, nah, that's the end of that. And so in past, Marty gets to fast forward to, drops back into 1985, and dad and mom's not a lush, she's not overweight. Brother has a job, he wears a suit to his job every day, and instead of the, you know, the fry cook hat or whatever. Sister is, you know, not an impossible dweeb or whatever she was. And dad is this successful writer who is writing science fiction and being published. And Biff is out there trying to scam on putting a second coat of wax on the car, you know, the Beamer or whatever. And Marty has the 4x4 that he wanted to have and can go on his little, you know, whatever overnight camping trip with his girl. So, I mean, all these things that sliding back in the quantum field in time doesn't exist out in outer space. It doesn't exist anywhere but right here. So sliding back in time, and he altered that. It changed the future. And I'm a huge believer, a huge believer in timeline stuff, in that collapse out timelines and you're going to change the future by getting back there with the changing of the past. And I don't mean that that's the predictable, obvious, yeah, of course it changes the future. I mean that it collapses out timelines. It's going to change kind of almost in a weird way. It's going to cause like a time dilation where stuff just settles in differently, and we start to really see some major changes in our perceptions. And I won't get into a big old discussion of that right now because it gets kind of complicated. However, we don't have to live in any one paradigm. We just don't. There's too many dimensional understandings, and there are too many people that aren't even willing to go there about whether dimensional understandings exist or not. And I personally don't care. You know, if you get where you need to go with the reincarnation and Akashic records and, you know, that, then fine. If you get there with your angel teams, fine. If you get there with the Fae, great. If you get there with color therapy, I get where I need to go using the modalities that work for me. And I found that through my own personal divinity. So this was a beautiful representation of that. And the flux capacitor, he fell and hit his head on the toilet or something and suddenly magically had the idea for the flux capacitor, which was the crucial deciding thing that helped his time machine get where it needed to go. So it was a great movie, a great, you know, chance. And ironically enough, I didn't think my children had seen it, and I happened to speak to one of my kids, and she goes, oh yeah, I love those movies. I spoke to her today, and that's what inspired me to go ahead and make the video. So what a lot of fun to go back to the future and know that every little change that's made in any healing, any time frame, it's going to necessarily change absolutely every energy associated with it. So doing my best to keep these under 15 minutes, as was advised, and I'm going to do that and just say to you, it's a great time to grab a hold of your life and be okay with yourself enough to say, I'm going to claim this moment, own it, and buy myself the reprieve of how about I just give myself a break and take care of that biff that might be inside my head going, McFly, McFly. Fire that monkey and say, yeah, I'm going to take at least 1 minute off to really appreciate me, that I'm here and I have the right to be breathing the air. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I would not have the right to be here if I wasn't here. So it would mean that I had dimed out, chimed out for whatever reason. So have a good evening. Have a great part of the day, whatever part it's in, and enjoy it, my friend. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And go watch Back to the Future. It's awesome. Thank you and take care. Mwah.